The evidence of the damage to children at the hands of LGBTIQA+ gender clinics is in. All that's needed now is for politicians to act. Even the left-leaning Economist Public Affairs magazine can't ignore what Australian politicians are. Its June 29 edition alleged that the US-based body responsible for the guidelines of so-called gender affirmative care, including the body that writes the guidelines for Australia's child gender clinics, has been less than honest about the scientific evidence indicating its guidelines are doing harm to children. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, was quick to dismiss the UK's CAS review, which in April found that children were being harmed by puberty blockers and surgery designed to make them change gender. The CAS review led to the banning of the use of puberty blockers on children and earlier to the closure of the Tavistock Child Gender Clinic in London. Yet, WPATH claimed everything was fine at its child gender clinics, including here in Australia, asserting its guidelines were based on far more systematic reviews than those conducted by the eminent paediatrician, Dr. Hilary Cass. Now, in contradiction, The Economist reports that court documents released in the US relating to a Supreme Court challenge to the ban on puberty blockers in Tennessee showed this was unlikely to be the case. In fact, according to The Economist, the documents alleged WPATH leaders, quote, interfered with the production of systematic reviews that it had commissioned from the Johns Hopkins University Evidence-Based Practice Centre, EPC, in 2018, end quote. Now, in short, what this means is that some research, the EPC from Johns Hopkins, that was produced over a number of years related to the potential harms of the gender affirmation of children, and that this information, this research, was suppressed. A WPATH email revealed through the court discovery process said research must be thoroughly scrutinised and reviewed to ensure that publication does not negatively affect the provision of transgender healthcare in the broadest sense. Now, at least one co-author of that email, according to The Economist, has been named to a World Health Organization advisory board tasked with developing best practices for so-called transgender medicine. In March, leaks to the New York Post exposed WPATH leaders supporting castration of and breast removal surgery on minors. Nothing has been done to review WPATH's influence on Australia's child gender clinics. But back in the US, another court document showed that Rachel Levine, a man who identifies as a woman and is the Biden administration's Assistant Secretary for Health, succeeded in pressing WPATH to remove minimum ages for the treatment of children who are confused about their gender. The latest scandal to hit WPATH has barely rated a mention in mainstream media beyond the narrowly read Economist. Australia's child gender clinics continue to operate with impunity, and school curriculums here continue to be laced with harmful LGBTIQA+ gender fluid ideology. Even our childcare centres, that's childcare centres in Australia, are forced to teach this gender confused nonsense to toddlers. Whistleblowers like child psychologist Dr. Gillian Spencer at the Queensland Health Child Gender Clinic in South Brisbane continue to be stood down from their jobs. There are many examples of Australians who have suffered at the hands of the gender clinics, which have been caught out referring girls as young as 15 for breast removal surgery. I recently interviewed 19-year-old Chloe Cole from California, who was visiting Australia talking to politicians about her experience of having her breasts removed at 15, only to realise a year later that she had made a terrible mistake. Like rabbits caught in the rainbow headlights, our politicians continue to lack the courage to act. But they can't say they didn't know. The Radical Greens, the most enthusiastic political party about changing children's gender, have brought the entire Australian polity to the place where it doesn't matter how much evidence is brought to bear, nothing changes. For example, the Coalition's leader in the Senate, Simon Birmingham, is doing his best to protect the LGBTIQA+ child gender clinics by running obstruction to attempts to shine light on their practices. He voted against Senator Pauline Hanson's motion for an inquiry and abstained from a similar motion brought by fellow Liberal Senator Alex Antic. If Peter Dutton's man in the Senate is on the side of the child mutilators, it's no wonder the gender clinics continue on their merry way.